Hernandez Goven reveals Key Glock killed his daughter. That's the headline sending social media into a frenzy right now. If you've been scrolling online, you've probably seen countless people acting like they already know the full story and exactly what happened.
Some people are calling it payback connected to young Dolph. Others are claiming old street issues finally came back around. A lot of users are throwing Key Glock's name into the mix without showing any verified proof at all. This situation has the blogs working overtime because the rumors spread fast, and the reactions have been even faster. Since Hernandez Goven is already one of the most talked about figures linked to the young Dolph case.
Talk about it. Yeah. Shout out to Crunch.
It didn't take long for people to start connecting dots before checking whether those dots actually belong together. Soon enough, timelines were packed with theories. Old interviews suddenly resurfaced. Clips from years ago started making the rounds again. Everybody seemed to have a source, and speculation was everywhere. People began asking whether this was revenge. They brought up old alliances, past disputes, and long-running relationships tied to Memphis. Some even started breaking down lyrics, social media activity, and vague online messages as if they were uncovering a hidden code. Then, Key Glock's name entered the conversation, and that's when the entire situation blew up even more. But here's the important part. The headline claiming Goven revealed Key Glock was responsible is a rumor that's been spreading online. It has not been proven as fact. By the end of this breakdown, you'll see why that headline gained so much attention, where the claims start falling apart, and why the verified details behind the story are creating just as much buzz as the rumors themselves. This isn't one of those stories where you can read a single headline and think you've got everything figured out. The more you look into it, the more twists start showing up. Every answer seems to create another question, and every rumor sparks an even bigger rumor. That's exactly why so many people have been locked into this story from the start. So what kicked off all this conversation? Why is Hernandez Goven back in the headlines again? How did Key Glock's name end up getting connected to the situation? Which parts can be linked to actual events, and which parts are the internet building into something much bigger? That's where things get complicated. To understand what's happening now, you have to look at the people involved, the history behind the case, the relationships everyone keeps talking about, and the events that triggered this latest wave of speculation. Somehow, one of hip-hop's most talked about stories ended up taking over social media all over again. Whether people see it as facts, theories, or a mix of both, one thing is clear. The conversation has spread everywhere, and as more details, claims, and reactions surfaced online, the mystery only seemed to grow even larger. To understand why these rumors keep resurfacing, it's important to know who Hernandez Goven is and why his name remains connected to one of the biggest criminal cases involving a major hip-hop figure in recent years. For anyone who isn't familiar with the background, here's the foundation of the story. Young Dolph, whose real name was Adolph Thornton Jr., was widely respected in Memphis and throughout hip-hop. He built his career independently, famously choosing to remain in control of his own business ventures rather than signing away that control. He created Paper Route Empire from the ground up and earned support from many people in Memphis because of how often he gave back to the community. From holiday turkey giveaways to other community support efforts, his impact was frequently recognized. As the owner of Makita's Cookies once said, Dolph was a breath of fresh air for the city. Then, on November 17, 2021, tragedy struck. Dolph visited Makita's homemade butter cookies on Airways Boulevard in Memphis, a place he was known to enjoy, and he was fatally shot in a daytime attack that shocked the city and the music world. This wasn't some late-night incident hidden away from the public eye. This happened in broad daylight. According to authorities, 2 gunmen arrived at the location and opened fire. Young Dolph suffered multiple gunshot wounds, and the autopsy later documented more than 20 wounds involving the head, neck, torso, and arms. The medical examiner ruled the death a homicide, and evidence collected during the investigation became part of the official case record. The shocking nature of the attack is one reason the case drew so much attention across the country. It wasn't just the loss of a major artist. It was the circumstances surrounding it that left so many people stunned. This is where Hernandez Goven's name entered the investigation. Prosecutors did not accuse Goven of being one of the shooters, and authorities never alleged that he was present at the scene. Instead, investigators claimed something different. According to the prosecution's allegations at the time, Goven played a role in organizing and coordinating events that ultimately led to the attack. Those claims became a major focus of the case and generated intense public discussion. In November 2022, Goven was indicted on charges that included first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. At the time, District Attorney Steve Mulroy publicly stated that prosecutors believed Goven had helped set the crime into motion. Those allegations instantly pushed Goven from a background figure into one of the most talked-about names connected to the case. That's why his name continues to attract attention whenever new developments or rumors appear online. The prosecution's portrayal of him as a key figure in the alleged plot became a headline that followed him everywhere. Whether those allegations would ultimately hold up in court became a major question, and many people closely watched every update that followed. Understanding that background helps explain why speculation spread so quickly whenever tragedy later touched Goven's family. Almost immediately, social media users began creating theories and connecting events. To understand why those rumors gained so much traction, you have to look at what investigators said may have motivated the attack on Dolph in the first place. Because the alleged motive became a major part of the public conversation, it's also one reason why so many revenge theories started spreading online. According to prosecutors, the killing was connected to a long-running dispute involving Anthony "Big Jook" Mims and young Dolph. Investigators alleged that tensions had been building for years and pointed to disagreements that had played out publicly through music and industry rivalries. At the center of those discussions were diss tracks and ongoing friction between camps associated with some of Memphis's biggest names. Big Jook was closely connected to the music label Run alongside his brother, Yo Gotti, and prosecutors argued that those long-standing tensions were relevant to understanding the case. Those allegations became a major focus because they offered a possible explanation for why investigators believed the attack happened. And that's where things became even more complicated. This wasn't viewed by many people as a simple disagreement or a short-lived online feud. The case brought renewed attention to years of rivalry, public exchanges, and speculation surrounding relationships within Memphis hip-hop. Prosecutors argued that those tensions eventually escalated into something far more serious. Then, another tragic event added even more attention to the story. Big Jook was later shot and killed outside a restaurant. His death sparked another wave of headlines, another round of questions, and another flood of theories online. Suddenly, people were looking at multiple tragedies connected, directly or indirectly, to figures whose names had already been circulating in the same public discussions. When events like that happen, it's common to see people start linking everything together. Social media users began building timelines, drawing connections, and creating narratives that stretched far beyond the facts that had actually been confirmed. Every new development seemed to generate another layer of speculation.
Now consider the situation from the public's perspective. Hernandez Goven had already been portrayed by prosecutors as a significant figure in the case involving Dolph. The prosecution's theory involved allegations of retaliation, loyalty, and long-standing conflicts. So when tragedy later touched Goven's family, many people online immediately tried to fit that event into the same narrative.
That's why the rumor mill was already moving at full speed before many verified details were available. The revenge theory didn't appear in a vacuum. Many people simply took the themes that had already been discussed in connection with the Dolph case and applied them to a completely separate tragedy. But this is also where it's important to remember that real people are involved. Behind every headline, every theory, and every viral post is an actual human story. And the next part of this situation is where the personal loss at the center of the discussion becomes impossible to ignore. Hernandez Goven had a daughter. Her name was Destiny Goven, born September 12, 1997, in Memphis, Tennessee. But in the music world, she was known as Lotta Cash Desto. And she wasn't just around music. She was actively building a serious career with real momentum behind her. She was signed to Lil Uzi Vert's label, and Uzi publicly showed love to her, calling her family and even referring to her as his twin and sister. That kind of connection in the industry doesn't happen by accident. It comes from trust, chemistry, and real collaboration. They even dropped music together, including Lunchroom in August 2022, with more projects reportedly on the way, like Vegas. Before that, she had already been releasing her own work, including mixtapes like I Just Wanna Ball and Pregame. She also dropped singles like Free Slat on YouTube, steadily building her name and audience. At just 25 years old, she was in the middle of shaping what looked like a promising career with major backing behind her. Then, tragedy struck. On September 24, 2022, in the early hours of the morning, around 2:40 a.m., Destiny was in Houston, Texas. She was driving a silver Porsche SUV in the 5,500 block of Richmond Avenue near Chimney Rock Road with a passenger inside the vehicle. According to Houston police, she stopped behind another car at an intersection. Something completely ordinary, just a normal moment in traffic. But investigators reported that everything changed in seconds. Two men allegedly exited the vehicle in front of her and opened fire into her car. Destiny Goven was found unresponsive in the driver's seat, and paramedics pronounced her dead at the scene. Her passenger was also struck and transported to the hospital for treatment, and a third person was injured during the chaos. She was 25 years old, signed to a major artist's label, and actively building her career when her life was cut short in an instant. The incident was confirmed by Houston authorities and documented in official reports, and it quickly became another devastating chapter tied to a family already in the public eye. Lil Uzi Vert spoke at her funeral back in Memphis, wearing dark shades, his voice shaking as he tried to hold it together, saying it didn't even feel real. He described Destiny as someone who was always right by his side, everywhere he went. That moment hit hard because it showed the personal weight behind the loss. This wasn't just an industry connection. It was a real bond, a real relationship, and a real grieving process unfolding in public. But this is where the story starts splitting in two directions. There's what actually happened, and then there's what the internet started claiming it meant. And those two things are not the same at all. Now here's where people started connecting dots, and this is the exact point where fact and speculation got tangled together. In September 2022, Hernandez Goven was already being discussed in connection with the Young Dolph murder investigation. At the same time, the broader narrative around Dolph's case was heavily focused on alleged retaliation, rivalries, and long-standing tension between groups in Memphis. Then tragedy struck again. Goven's daughter was killed in Houston that same month, and the timing alone sent social media into overdrive. People started lining up events like pieces on a timeline, trying to force meaning onto every date, every name, every coincidence. But the actual order matters. Young Dolph was killed in November 2021. Destiny Goven was killed in September 2022, months before Goven was formally indicted in November 2022. Still, online speculation took that sequence and twisted it into theories about payback and getting even, suggesting without evidence that one tragedy was connected to another. That's how quickly narrative takes over reality online. The revenge framework was already sitting in people's minds, so when another violent event happened involving someone tied to the same overall case, people slotted it into the story automatically. And to be clear, a pattern people think they see is not proof. It's interpretation, not evidence. Even Hernandez Goven himself was later asked about the rumors directly, which only added more fuel to a conversation that was already spiraling far beyond verified facts. In sit-down interviews on platforms like Vlad TV, places known for going straight into controversial topics, Hernandez Goven was directly asked about the rumor that his daughter's death was revenge connected to young Dolph. They didn't dance around it. They put the question right in front of him. And that's important because it shows something people often miss online. A rumor being discussed publicly doesn't automatically make it true. It only means people are talking about it, asking about it, and trying to make sense of it. Even getting questioned on it doesn't turn it into fact. But here's where clarity matters. Asking someone about a claim is not the same thing as that person confirming it. And just because a theory spreads widely across social media doesn't mean it has any verified foundation. This is where you have to separate three things clearly: what law enforcement actually proved, what the internet is speculating about, and what misleading headlines try to turn into reveals that never actually happened. Now let's get into what the real investigation showed, because this is where the viral narrative starts to fall apart fast. When Houston police investigated the murder of Hernandez Goven, they did not uncover a wide conspiracy involving industry retaliation or hidden connections to larger cases. Instead, they identified specific suspects tied directly to the scene. The first suspect was Christian Isaiah Williams, 24 years old. He was not just linked through speculation. He was physically connected to the incident because he was also shot during the exchange. During the chaos, Williams was found injured in a parking lot near where Hernandez's vehicle had been targeted. He was taken to the hospital, and evidence collected at the scene tied him to the shooting. He was formally charged with murder, with bond set at $150,000. The second suspect came later. In April 2023, roughly 7 months after the killing, 19-year-old Jeremiah Smith was arrested after investigators tracked him down. He was extradited from Alexandria, Louisiana, as the case progressed and law enforcement continued building their file. And this is the key point. The investigation, as it stands in official records, focuses on these individuals, not on any broader revenge narrative tied to music industry conflicts or viral online theories. He was also charged with murder in the 176th State District Court in Houston. And there's a detail here that stands out immediately. His bond was set at $500,000, significantly higher than the other suspect's bond of $150,000. In legal terms, bond amounts can reflect how seriously a court views a suspect's alleged involvement, which is why people often pay attention to those differences. Both individuals were officially charged in connection with the September 24, 2022 shooting. And here's what matters most. When you look at all verified reporting from Houston police, local Houston news outlets, and national hip-hop media coverage, the same names consistently appear: Christian Isaiah Williams and Jeremiah Smith. Those are the two suspects tied to the case in official records. No additional individuals, no industry figures, and no alternate names have been confirmed through law enforcement documentation. As for motive, investigators did not lock in a single definitive explanation publicly. Early reporting suggested possibilities like robbery or road rage, based on the circumstances of the shooting and the fact that multiple shots were fired in a chaotic encounter involving vehicles. What's important is that, as of the available reporting, no confirmed motive connecting the case to young Dolph was ever established. In fact, multiple outlets emphasized a key point repeatedly. There is no verified or official link between the death of young Dolph and the murder of Hernandez Goven. That connection exists primarily in online speculation, not in court findings or police conclusions. So where does Key Glock fit into the official case? The answer is simple: he doesn't. In every verified document, charging record, and credible news report related to the investigation, his name does not appear at all. Not as a suspect, not as a person of interest, not in any official capacity. That means the viral claim stating that Goven revealed Key Glock killed his daughter is not supported by any law enforcement record or reputable reporting. It exists as an online rumor, not as an established fact in the case file. And this is where things get important, because it shows how quickly narratives can form without evidence to support them. So the real question becomes, how does a name with no official connection end up at the center of a viral accusation like this in the first place? You start with a real tragedy, Destiny Goven killed, and that part is not in dispute. Then you add a second layer, the already existing framework around the young Dolph case, which was widely discussed in public as a revenge-related investigation. Then you add something else that's also real in a general sense. People asking questions like, was this payback? That question did circulate widely online, even if it was never proven. From there, the pattern becomes predictable. Somewhere in the middle of all that speculation, someone decides a name is needed to anchor the story, because a rumor tied to a recognizable figure spreads far faster than one involving unknown suspects from Houston. That's how viral narratives are built in the first place. The actual charged suspects, Christian Williams and Jeremiah Smith, don't generate traction in online spaces. Their names don't trend, don't get turned into thumbnails, and don't drive engagement at scale. But when a high-profile artist's name gets inserted into the framing, the story suddenly becomes clickable, shareable, and algorithm-friendly. Key Glock becomes the easy target in that process because he already exists within the emotional landscape of the young Dolph story. He was Dolph's close collaborator and protege under Paper Route Empire, and their partnership, especially projects like Dumb and Dumber, was heavily documented and widely known. After Dolph's death, Glock's loss of his mentor became part of the larger narrative the public followed closely. So what happens next is a classic internet distortion. A name that already carries emotional weight in one story gets pulled into an unrelated case in Houston without any evidence, charges, or official statements connecting him to it whatsoever. No police reports, no court filings, no verified quotes, just speculation layered on top of speculation until it starts to look like fact. That's the shift, when a question mark gets replaced with a name and presented as certainty. That's how "could this be connected" turns into "this is who did it," even when nothing in the official record supports that jump. And to be clear, curiosity around cases like this is normal. People try to make sense of violent, confusing events all the time. But there's a hard line between asking questions and assigning blame without evidence. When a person is named in connection with a murder without charges, documentation, or credible sourcing, that stops being inquiry and turns into something else entirely. That kind of claim spreads fast online. And that's exactly why it can stick to someone's name long after the facts say otherwise. To be clear and direct, there is no credible evidence connecting Key Glock to Destiny Goven's death. The individuals charged in that case are Christian Williams and Jeremiah Smith. Everything beyond that comes from online speculation, not official records or verified reporting. And this is where the story shifts again, because the focus moves back to the center of the entire saga, Hernandez Goven. And the way his legal situation eventually unfolded took a turn many people weren't expecting. Goven had been portrayed by prosecutors as an alleged key figure in the young Dolph case. The district attorney argued he solicited and helped set the alleged events in motion, and he was charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy. With accusations that serious, he was facing the possibility of a life sentence. His life for years was essentially suspended under the weight of that case. Periods of detention, house arrest, and constant legal pressure while everything moved toward trial. When the trial finally began in August 2025, things escalated quickly. Opening statements started on Monday, August 18th, and over the following days, prosecutors called multiple witnesses tied to the investigation. That list included young Dolph's sister, members of his security team, and a key witness whose testimony carried major weight in the case. One of the most significant figures to testify was Cornelius Smith Jr., a man who admitted his involvement as one of the shooters in the ambush at Makita's Cookies. Smith had already played a major role in prior proceedings, including testimony that helped secure a conviction against Justin Johnson, the other shooter, who was found guilty in 2024 and sentenced to life in prison. During Goven's trial, Smith testified that Goven had been in contact with him and Justin Johnson, and alleged that he helped coordinate aspects of the incident. There was also testimony presented suggesting financial involvement, including claims about payments tied to the alleged plan. These statements became a central part of the prosecution's case as the trial unfolded. Investigators presented what looked like a detailed breakdown of evidence, including a full PowerPoint showing alleged communications between Hernandez Goven and individuals connected to the case. On the surface, it sounded like a strong, tightly connected timeline. But once the defense got involved, that narrative was immediately challenged. Goven's attorney, Manny Aurora, went straight after the foundation of the investigation. He argued that the interpretation of the cell phone data did not directly establish involvement in the killing, and he maintained that none of the messages presented actually proved criminal coordination. In his view, the prosecution was drawing conclusions that the evidence itself did not clearly support. The defense also offered an alternative explanation for the communication between Goven and Cornelius Smith. They argued that the contact was not unusual, claiming Goven had a history of providing Smith with drugs, which would explain why the two were in touch without implying involvement in any larger plan. The goal of the defense was to reframe what the prosecution presented as suspicious behavior into something routine and non-criminal. They also pushed a broader theory that there were larger forces and unrelated conflicts being misinterpreted as a single organized plot, suggesting Goven was being used as a convenient focal point rather than being directly responsible. When it came time for Goven himself, he made a strategic legal decision. He did not take the stand in his own defense. Instead, he relied on his legal team and placed the burden entirely on the prosecution to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. The jury ultimately deliberated quickly. After roughly 96 minutes on the first day and about 3 hours total, they returned their verdict on Thursday, August 21st, 2025. Not guilty on all charges. The man once labeled as an alleged mastermind walked out of court free. He hugged his attorney, thanked the judge, and told reporters he was going home to hug my son, saying he had always believed in his innocence and that he knew he had a chance from the beginning. Not everyone accepted the outcome without criticism. The owner of Makita's publicly stated that they did not feel justice had been fully served, while prosecutors emphasized that jury decisions must be respected even in disagreement. Meanwhile, Cornelius Smith, the confessed shooter who testified in earlier proceedings, still has his own legal matters ahead. And that brings the story full circle. The man widely discussed online as a mastermind was acquitted by a jury, while the individuals officially charged in related events remain the ones named in court records and police reports. Not the name in the viral headline. And the connection between young Dolph's death and Destiny Goven's death has still never been officially established. Still a question mark in the public record. That gap between speculation and proof is exactly where this entire story gets twisted. Now zoom all the way out, because this is bigger than any one headline. This whole situation shows how fast a culture can turn real tragedy into online speculation. A 25-year-old woman with real talent was killed in a violent incident at a red light. And somehow, that moment got pulled into a guessing game where celebrity names were dropped into thumbnails like they were facts. A man who was acquitted by a jury after facing serious allegations was still being labeled online as a mastermind despite the verdict. And an artist who was never charged or named in any official capacity got dragged into a murder narrative purely through internet circulation and click-driven framing. Every name involved in this story represents real people with real families behind them. Young Dolph was a son, a father, and a major figure in music. Destiny was a daughter, an artist building her future. Even the individuals charged in the Houston case have families who live with the consequences of how these stories are told. And that's the real issue here. When fiction spreads as fact, it doesn't just create engagement, it reshapes real lives in the public eye. That doesn't mean people shouldn't ask questions. The young Dolph case still has complexity, and Destiny's case has details that people are still trying to fully understand. Curiosity is normal, and it's part of how stories get examined. But there's a clear line between questioning and accusing, and viral narratives often cross it without evidence. The verified facts are simple. Destiny's death is real, the grief is real, and the revenge theory is just that. A theory people repeated, not something proven in court or confirmed by investigators. And Key Glock's name being tied to it is not supported by any official record. That's the real breakdown. Now I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think we'll ever get full clarity on how all these cases connect? Or are these the kinds of stories that will always stay partly unanswered?
If you watched all the way through, make sure to like, subscribe, and share for more deep dives like this. Stay tuned, and I'll catch you in the next one.